Hi there, Mandy Friedman here, licensed professional clinical counselor, clinically certified domestic violence counselor, clinically certified trauma professional, level 2, the creator of SNAP, survivors of narcissistic and abusive personalities. Back with my brother Andrew talking about HBO Succession. Hi, Andrew.
Hey, Mandy. Logan is dead, and we are going to move on to season 4, episode 4, and deal with the grief and the guilt of an abuser's death. Grief is strange when an abuser dies, right? And we get to see at the beginning that the kids are at their homes, and we kind of see how they're dealing with the grief a little bit. Kendall's kind of just sitting there staring. Roman is brushing his teeth vigorously, and Shiv gets a phone call.
Yes, she gets a call from her doctor and discovers that her pregnancy is going well. We didn't know she was pregnant. And it seems like that there was a question as to whether the fetus was healthy. And the doctor says that everything looks great and that everything's healthy. I don't know. Shiv seems a little down about that. I mean, yeah, it's true. Her dad just died. So it might be sad to learn that she's pregnant right after her father passes away. And he never gets to know that. She didn't get to tell him that news. So maybe that's part of it. Or maybe part of it is that she really doesn't want to have a baby in the first place. I don't know. But you had a different perspective of what seemed like, to me, like she didn't seem all that happy about it.
Well, she's separated from Tom, so that makes this very complicated, right, for her emotionally. And if you look at her when she hears the news, she kind of smirks a little bit, but it's in a way like, I did a good job. You know what I mean? Like, I did the thing that was really hard that we weren't able to do, but then the complicated thoughts kind of drift in, and she's like, oh, because she's not together with Tom, but now she's carrying his child.
It's true. There's a shift when she's on the phone with the doctor, and then the doctor says it's good, and then she goes into her more stoic persona right then. And you're right. It's like, maybe, okay, that's done. I've checked that box, because she definitely her emotions shift right in that moment. So I'm interested in what she really feels.
It's always complicated and nuanced in this show, and that's why we love it. Most of this episode takes place at Logan's home, where the wake is happening. Right now, it's not a layout. He's not there. It's just everyone's gathering to kind of talk about it. And I feel like it's been a few days, or maybe one day since the death. Marcia is presiding over the wake, kind of like she is a taskmaster there at the wake, and they're all surprised to see her. From their point of view, the relationship was on the rocks.
Kendall is surprised to see Marcia, and even says something like, how did you get here this fast? He says something like, I don't think that you guys have seen each other in 7 months. And then that's when she says, we've had nightly intimate phone calls.
And that is a strange thing to say to Kendall in that way, because of what she's saying means. It's also strange because later on we do see Carrie show up. And Carrie is a mess. And Marcia gatekeeps the bedroom from Carrie and won't let her go up there. And Carrie says, well, I have some stuff up there. And Marcia goes, oh, yeah, it's in a bag. I already packed it up.
Yeah. Marcia is really doesn't give a shit. She is there to get what she wants, and she's going to work it however she needs to. She has no empathy for Carrie at all. Even Roman is having empathy for Carrie. He's one of the bigger assholes of the group usually, but yeah, he was like, man, that was kind of harsh, don't you think? Carrie dropped her purse or dropped the bag and things spilled everywhere. But Marcia is letting everyone know that she's on the scene, she's in charge.
Marcia even does a deal with Connor, cold as ice. Connor's there. He is like, man, I've always wanted to own this place. And he's just kind of saying it like, well, maybe we can talk about it. And Marcia's like, gives him a number right then and there.
She said, I want to sell between 60 and 70 million. He's like, 65. She says, deal. Spits in her hand, shakes his hand. Like, man, no wonder Logan saw her as a worthy adversary almost, he was afraid of her probably a little bit.
She's a serious person.
She is a serious person.
So,
Absolutely.
and she's a killer too, by the way. So, it's like, I think that Marcia, we see how competent she is here and how she is ready for this. So she's been ready. She's got a plan going and she's going to execute the plan. And everyone's kind of like, cool, good job. But man, that's mean to carry. The children have kind of their own room at this wake, and they're sitting there and they're talking about things, and they each talk about their grief. So first we have Roman, who says that he's fine. He's surprisingly fine because he has done a technique called pre-grieving.
Yeah, he says that he's already thought about this so much that it's like it's already happened and he's fine. He's totally over it. Everything's good. And it's like, okay, well, all right, we'll see about that. And Kendall talks about someone he's talking to and then suggests that person to Shiv. And then Shiv is like, oh, you've got a grief guy. And that's just funny because even in their grieving, there's this like status competition thing going on, right? That's what we're watching all around us at the wake is despite what's happening, everyone's still jockeying for position. The executives are like circling and they're meeting in their own group as well. So you've got the kids in one room, you've got the executives in the other, and Tom is kind of floating around. And at one point he comes over to the executives group and he throws his hat in the ring. This is the first time we've seen him be so overt about wanting that position. He came right up and just said it.
He has an interesting position in this show too, this episode, because he's kind of stuck between the sharks and the kids a little bit. He's kind of, his position is floating right now. He doesn't know what's going to happen with him. So he has to kind of act. And I think that we see that Tom knows when to do that and he knows when not to. Now he throws his hat in the ring and Carl undresses him with a speech and basically cuts a wrestling promo on him in a way to say, because Tom says, well, what do you think of this idea? It's like, and that's how that works when they're pitching ideas is they say, well, what about this? And then they say, well, would you like my real opinion? And then they just unload. And Carl is very amusing.
It's like this mic drop moment for Carl. He's feeling pretty pleased with himself. He says, you're a clumsy interloper and nobody trusts you. The only guy pulling for you is dead. And now you're just married to the ex-boss's daughter and she doesn't even like you. You are fair and squarely fucked. And Tom's eyes are like, they're on fire in that moment. Like there is an intensity in his eyes. And I can't tell if it's a intensity of like, I'm going to show you, or if it's just straight up fear over what, he's about to lose everything he's been working so hard to build for himself. Other stops that he has made while he's floating around, he attempts to apologize to Kendall for the rough conversation that they had. And Kendall says, I like you, Tom. They seem to still have this kind of amicable relationship where they don't hate each other. Tom also has a conversation with Shiv for just a minute, and he tries to take her back to the moment that they fell in love. He's painting that picture, romantic picture of when they first really liked each other. And it sounded great, but she didn't really fall for it. She kind of rejected it and didn't go there with him. She got up and walked away. Prior to that comment, though, where he's trying to be romantic with her, she was talking about how she felt guilty. She was saying that if the kids wouldn't have put their father in the situation that he was in, maybe he wouldn't have died then. Maybe the stress of them fighting him is what made him die, and that perhaps he would have lived long enough to hug his grandkids. She and Tom both kind of laughed that off like, yeah, well, that wasn't going to happen. And clearly that's not really anything that's important to him. It was like a joke.
That is an example of dramatic irony when us as the audience, we know something that a character does not. And when she says that to Tom, she's saying her grandkids. She's saying their grandkid, right? But he doesn't know she's pregnant. And so there's a couple moments like that in this episode that are pretty awesome. The sharks are in Logan's study. It's not his office. They go there a little later, I think. And there is a letter that Frank found in one of the safes there. And the letter has like plans for the future. And one of the things on there is Kendall to be CEO. And it's in Logan's handwriting. However, there's a discrepancy that is hilarious.
There's an ambiguous underline. And so that becomes a topic of conversation, very important as to whether it's an underline or it's a crossing out. But they're trying to decide what they're going to do with the letter. Maybe it should disappear. Maybe we don't show anyone.
It's not germane.
Right. It's not. It's not legal. It's not going to legally hold up. But it's basically his wishes. But they think that it was written a long time ago, so they're not really taking it too seriously. When Frank finds it, he shows it to Carl. They discuss making it disappear. The next thing you know, I think Jerry walks in. They show Jerry, and now everyone knows. And when they show this to Kendall, it especially affects him, obviously, if he's named. Because at this point, he's been kind of doing his own thing, right? They're pulling away from their father. They're carving their own path. But now he sees that his dad actually had him in mind, and that rocks Kendall. I mean, it affects him in some complicated ways. And you mentioned at the beginning of the episode how that it is really complicated when an abusive parent dies. And I believe that this is a moment that demonstrates that. So he feels like that his father doesn't like him, doesn't respect him, and he's been in this back and forth battle with his father, that he's having to fight him. Now he sees that his dad genuinely did feel like that he should have that position. He has proof for the first time ever in his own father's writing, his handwriting. And I feel like that has, in a way, made Kendall think, I wonder if I screwed this up. Possibly, I wonder if I would have done things differently, because I did have my dad's trust and respect at one point, and then I didn't. And now I've been having to fight him for it. He's sort of shook by it. But just like times in the past with Kendall, just when you think he's about to have some growth, or what I like to call human being moments, a typical person might learn a lesson from that, but instead it propels him into wanting more, and it's giving him the affirmation possibly that he needs to keep his campaign going. So when Kendall realizes that his dad did have faith in him at one point, he's really tempted to get involved again. And Frank points out to him and says, "You've seemed so well lately. Are you sure you want to get involved?" Mm-hmm. And I think that Kendall recognizes that he did have his dad's approval, and at one point he lost it. It was there and now it's gone. And it's something that he's been chasing.
Well, the other thing that's going on here is that Shiv is getting pushed out. Shiv saw the letter as well. And when she saw it, she didn't see an underline. She saw it crossed out. She also didn't see her name on that letter. And she thought that maybe she was going to be the CEO. So she's having a similar type of reaction to Kendall. But instead of being wanting to be put in, she's getting pushed out. And there is a decision by the board. The board votes, and it's off screen, but we see that Kendall and Roman are going to run the company now. So Shiv is officially pushed out of this whole thing. And she's on the outs with her husband. She's on the outs with everybody. And it's interesting. We're going to see, what does she do? Because she's going to retaliate in some way. In the past, what she's done, she goes out and finds an opponent of her father and works with them. So maybe she'll do that again this time. We'll see.
There's a moment where she falls down.
Oh, that's so sad.
And so she's going through a hard time. She's, finding out she's pregnant. She's not with Tom. Her dad just died. Her brothers are pushing her out. She's feeling really alienated. And she has this moment where she loses her balance going down the little steps, and she falls down in front of everybody. And, that embarrasses her. And she sort of, walks off from there. There's something that she's going to do with this. You're right. This whole time she's wanted to matter, and she's wanted to make a difference, and she's wanted to be important and to have status and respect. I wonder if one of the thoughts that she's having is, I thought that I was going to maybe do these great professional things, and now I'm pregnant and no one is respecting me. And that has to feel very disempowering for her. And when you see her fall, you feel bad for her. But at the same time, she springs up from those falls. She comes back. Every time we've seen somebody try to push her around, she has her way of disrupting. And I wonder what forms of disruption are still yet to come from her.
The other thing going on in this episode is that now it's been decided where Kendall and Roman are going to be, the leaders going forward. They have to figure out how they're going to handle the legacy of Logan. And they kind of have two choices about it. Are they going to trash him to make Kendall and Roman look better as like a better option? Or is this kind of the continuation of the same family traditions that Royco has always had? So they choose to go the high road. However, earlier in the episode, Hugo came to Kendall and he said, listen, man, I'm really sorry. We see him cussing somebody out on the phone when they first walk in. Later on, we find out that his daughter, who he, quote, doesn't have a relationship, which is the real irony of it, has sold a bunch of stock, Waystar Royco's stock right before the death. And that's insider trading. Right? That could be viewed as insider trading, like maybe she knew something, and maybe she did. Hugo comes to Kendall with this, and now that is weaponized information for Kendall. He has gotten this inspiration from his father's letter that he wants back in. And how does he get back in, man?
He's going to weaponize that information that he knows about Hugo's daughter. He tells Hugo to go ahead with the smear campaign, that he wants it to happen. And Hugo's like, okay, well, I'm going to need someone to sign off on this. Kendall's like, no one's signing off on it. You're doing it on your own. And he's like, I don't think I feel comfortable with that. And then Kendall says something to him that's kind of crude. But what he was saying is, are you sure that you can't do that because you don't want me to tell your secret? Mm-hmm. Do you? He leverages that piece of information over Hugo. We assume that Hugo is now going to do that smear campaign to help Kendall look better for this transition.
Because Kendall had been talking shit about his dad not very long ago, right? The kind of goal of this episode was to see how everyone reacts to the business side of this death. We get to see the grief, of course, and the guilt from the kids alongside of it. This is the last season of the show, and now we're on a trajectory towards the end. And this is all set up for what is going to happen next.
So the wake happened. We're starting to see the complexities of an abusive parent passing away and how these kids and the people around them are responding and reacting to the situation. Everyone knowing that this man is kind of an asshole, major asshole. And yet here we are supposed to be grieving him. You have the children that are actually grieving, but yet they've been abused and they were kind of estranged. We've got Marcia, we've got Carrie, we've got Connor going to move into the house now because he bought the house from Marcia. So there's things in the works, like you said, with them moving forward. But I think one of the themes that we want to continue to pay attention to is that complex grief going on with the kids, of how you come to terms with your love for a parent, but also knowing that it's a parent who has harmed you. We'll see how things play out. Thank you for watching or listening. Goodbye. That seems like a downer way to end it, but oh well.